Previously, in the anime, Rick passed the first phase of the adventurer test, and the second phase was the mock battle, and their Raster showed his interest in making Rionette his wife, which Rick didn't like, but Raster was the examiner for the mock battle and decided to show Rick his place. Then later, those two kids of the Diamert family were Raster's siblings, and they falsely accused Rick of being a bully, so Raster got yet another reason to pick a fight with Rick, but the examiner for Rick was chosen someone else named Lynx. But he was beaten up by Raster, plus Raster used underhanded technique and teleported Rick away from the exam to kill him, but Rick's party members, the S rank Orichalcum Fist, arrived where Raster's goon were trying to kill Rick, and they sorted them out, so when Rick got back, he heard from Lynx what happened. Raster made fun of Lynx just for having a dream of building a school, and because of him Lynx was demoralized. Hearing this, Rick finally decided to beat Raster to a bloody pulp. Raster was a show-off prick who always beats E or F rank examinee to the edge, and in the audience there was Adolf, who has a very special skill. Now, there are 4 cores of powers in the world: strength, dexterity, mana capacity, and magic control, and his skill can peek through this graph. Like he saw Baldi had a low level, and Raster was too great in magic, but it strains his eyes to peek longer on strong people, and if that's the case, he would go blind seeing Rick. It was off the charts, and there he goes, officially blind. Then on the other side, Alisa meets Rionette, and Rionette told her she's in the same party as Rick, so she invited her to watch the match together, and Eldwarf told Rionette to sit with him, but she passed the offer because he's a pervert, and there Alisa introduced herself and Eldwarf asked her the same, so Rionette took Alcia away from the pervert. Then comes the time for the match to start, and Alisa was perplexed if Rick could win. You see, Rick worked in the guild with her, and Raster on the other hand was a rank adventurer. But there was nothing to worry about. Raster there was showing his smug face again as he knew his elite guards would fail because they are commoners. But he's a genius, and Rick asked why a noble like him became an adventurer. Well, Raster had the talent and it brings prestige to their family, and that's all the more reason to beat him up. And Raster gave a warning shot to Rick, but Rick didn't fuel his anger because Rionette told him before to observe Raster for just 1 minute. So he chose to trust her, and their Raster started his handiwork. Yet nothing happens to Rick. It's too small to phase him. So a Shork says that mana capacity needs to be trained through young age or else it will not improve as you get older. Rick had started his training when he was 30, so his mana capacity was close to none, which is why a Shork and others have trained Rick in other 3 cores. And training was close to hell as he binds his leg with weight in a forest of monsters. That way they trained Rick in increasing his 3 cores. Then Raster made an air attack, but no good, and a Shork said Mizet has trained Rick in magic control. But it was surprising he trained him for 2 years, while Mizet had to, or else a 10-year-old would have turned Rick to ash. As for Rionette, she trained Rick in dexterity. But Alisa thought she was a maid. Well, she dresses up like this because of her hobby, but Rick has become a S-rank adventurer and Raster was still going on. And Rick never believed he was strong because the Shork kept saying he's worse than a F rank. It was to motivate him, but it backfired. And their Raster was going all out with many spell, but it's nothing more than a warm-up for Rick. So Raster was pissed now, so he used physical attack and Rick fends him off. But 1 minute was over and Rick understood that Raster relied on his talent so much that he never trained in other aspects of his cores, so that makes him just a fly hovering around right now. But the fly used the 3rd level of flames, and Rick still neutralized it with his bare hand, and Mizet explains that Rick used 1 out of 100,000 of Raster's power. His mana control does come in handy even if he has no mana capacity, and Raster had to become iron to take a hit from Rick, yet he thinks he's tired that Rick landed a hit on him. But Rick said he used only dexterity, not even magic, to overpower him, yet Raster didn't believe on him because no one could become this strong in just 2 years. But Rick was thrown into the dragon's lair and couldn't return until he killed it. Then he had to run through explosives, plus he had to swim through paralyzing liquid. That could literally kill him several times, and he did, but a Shork's heal could bring him back if he used it on the person who died just recently. So Rick kept on training as every time he died and a Shork brought him back. So Raster thought Rick is just making things up, and more so, what about his moral support? Rick had his dreams to defeat the strongest monster Kaiser, so Fried and Raster started laughing at Rick for this, because everyone thinks that Kaiser is just a story of heroic legend. But it's also the goal of Orichalcum Fist, yet others thinks it's just a fairy tale. So Raster had enough and got serious this time. And after binding Rick, he used his ultimate 8th class magic of the trees to show Rick what true power looks like. But his true power was just a stupid giant tree armor. Fried and Angelica believes Raster would win for sure, so Rick only took out his air shot attack, a basic spell to pierce through Raster, so Raster again looked down on Rick. But Rick asked him about his training and he said he mastered his spell after a few times of usage, so in short, he never trained, and Rick had trained his skill for 100 million times. That's impossible in 2 years, but a Shork has space-time ability, and Raster had enough of it and attacked Rick, and Rick broke free and did the same. Raster thought he was winning, but in a short while he got crushed by the very same person he thought of as a third-grade guy, and the audience couldn't believe the results, but that's to be expected. And afterwards in the backroom Rick meets with others as he finally realized how strong he is, so he's grateful for them that they trained him, but they were all so modest. And their beaten Raster comes and Rick told him he got beaten by a late bloomer like him. Raster thought he was making fun of him, but Rick meant to say is that he should start training like hell to polish his skills, so Raster took his words and promised in the next promotion test he will win for sure and left, and then, the results were laying out in the guild of who become an adventurer, but others were in the tavern eating out their fill. As for Rick, he was calm this time about results. And so on, episode 3 ends, but stay tuned to watch more of it on my channel, and please comment down in the comments section if you found anything less on my video, because I am trying my best to make the video that everyone likes, so your opinion will be very useful, and if you enjoyed the video, then please like the video to support me. Until then, take care.